Hi, my name's Rebecca McCullough, and I want to take a minute to tell you a story about a girl I knew. She was raised in Colorado in a good Christian family. Her father was a deacon, her mom was a Sunday school teacher. My friend was the second of 3 children and always kind of felt a little odd being the middle child. She wasn't quite as cute or quite as good as her older sister, and she wasn't as young as her younger brother. She just was the middle child. She tried really hard to be a good kid. She worked in this church nursery. She taught Sunday school from the time she was in 3rd grade. But she always wanted to be something else. Her sister graduated from high school 2 years before she did and went away to Ouachita Baptist University. My friend continued through high school and was an exceptional student in speech and drama. She was in the beauty pageants. She did everything, but never quite felt she lived up to her sister's reputation. When my friend got ready to graduate from high school, it was time for her to choose the college to go to. All of her family wanted her to go to Ouachita, and she refused. She was no longer going to be Deborah's little sister. She wanted to be her own person. The pastor wanted her to go to a religious college, and she refused to do that also because she said she could not do anything except be a preacher's wife by going to a religious college, and she'd have the preacher looking for a new church every week or two because of her opinionated status. So she chose to go to State College of Arkansas. She didn't need a religious college. She was going to join the Baptist Student Union. She was going to be with the athletes of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and besides which there was a Church of Christ right across the campus that she could go to. She had it all together. No one needed to tell her what to do. Time came for my friend to go to college, and she did. She assumed things were going to be like they were for her sister. She was going to meet a brand new roommate. They were going to be freshmen together. They were going to be great friends throughout their whole school year, probably the rest of their lives. But things didn't happen that way. My friend's roommate was a junior. She was a fraternity sweetheart, the little sister. She was very sexually active. She did drugs. She did alcohol. All the things that my friend had never learned about. My friend got busy with the drama and speech departments. And before long, she realized, this is more important than going to class. I've got the rest of my life to learn. So she just kind of drifted away and not went to class. And Sunday mornings would come and it would be time to go to church. And, that Church of Christ was across campus, and it was a kind of a strange-looking building, and she wasn't really sure where the entrance was. And, you wouldn't want to walk in the middle of someone's class. And just kind of made up excuses not to go. And she wasn't an athlete, so the Fellowship of Christian Athletes didn't work out for her. And she really wasn't a Baptist, so she shouldn't go to Baptist Student Union. She would just stay busy with her friends in the speech and drama department. And that's what she did. She wasn't a bad girl. She just was going along, letting nothing happen in her life. Christmas vacation came and she went home. And the very wise pastor who had tried to get her to go to a religious college called her to the side and asked her to give her testimony on what it was like to be a Christian on a state college campus. My friend thought about it for a while, and then she said, I'll do it when I come back at Easter. Because my friend realized she had never actually been a Christian. She hadn't spoken up for Christ. She hadn't gone to church. She hadn't read her Bible. She didn't know what it was like to be a Christian on a state college campus because she hadn't been one. My friend went back to school and met with all of us and told us about what had happened at Christmas. And said she was going to give her testimony come Easter. It was a big joke. It was a really joke, Okay, Beck, we're going to do this for you. Here's a calendar. This is when spring break is, so you can become a Christian this Sunday before you leave, and that way you'll be able to tell everybody. And then when you come back after spring break, we'll go back to our regular lives. Not exactly what it's like to be a Christian on a state campus, I guess. At the campus, there was a great big huge bear that sat in the student union. The legend about that bear was that when the first virgin ever graduated from that college, the bear would get up and walk out of the student union. And my friend was teased a lot about the fact that she wouldn't sleep around like everybody else did, and that someday that bear was going to have to walk because of her. My friend got tired of being teased, so she decided, all right, I'm not going to be a Christian for a couple more weeks, so I can go ahead and lose my virginity. And plans were made for a great big, huge, gigantic party. Lots of drugs, lots of booze, and the loss of virginity. Well, State College of Arkansas is in, it's not Faulkner County, but it's in Conway, and it's a dry county. To get the booze, everybody had to drive to Little Rock. So since it was a party for all of us drama freaks, we drove to Little Rock, and we filled up the Mustang. How we got across even at little dips in the street, I don't know. We had that car packed. Captain Jimmy's house was going to be the night of the party, and everything was ready. The party would be the night of February 8th, 1972. Unfortunately, the party didn't happen because we were told at class that morning that we were behind schedule and we would all work. We would be at the theater at 3 o'clock and we would not leave until we were caught up. The group of us got together and decided, well, no big deal, we'll have the party tomorrow night. And we went to the green room at the theater and started working. And we worked, and we worked, and we worked. About 7 o'clock that evening, 6:30, 7 o'clock that evening, we broke for supper. Cafeterias are all closed, so we're going to have to go somewhere to eat. And everybody took off their own separate directions. That night, my friend got in a car with her best friend. And they drove to Senor Bob's to get something to eat. They didn't make it. My friend always wore her seatbelt, but for some reason that night she failed to wear her seatbelt. It was a joke again. Everybody hid the seatbelt from her because she was such a fanatic about it. But that night she forgot the seatbelt. They got in the car and they were driving to Senor Bob's for dinner. And they drove to Front and Bruce Streets in Conway, the main crossing there at the college. They stopped at the first track, and according to the eyewitness, he could see them both turn their heads. They moved to the second track, and they both turned their heads. When they got to the third track, they were broadsided by a Missouri Pacific freight train. The engineer later admitted he was doing 45 miles an hour coming through town because he was late, and records show he did not blow the whistle. They were broadsided. The car was bent into a 90-degree angle. My friend was thrown into the windshield and bubbled it out 7 inches with her face. She was thrown backwards, knocked the driver down under the seat, and kept her from getting hit. She went forward and cracked the dashboard open with her head. She went backwards, was knocked through the back window, hit the train, and thrown 275 feet down the track. My friend's parents were still in Colorado. It was her father's birthday. He was waiting for her to call him, and she didn't call. The phone rang. It was the pastor wanting her father, who was a chef, to fix dinner for the deacons. He agreed that he would do that on Saturday. But he was upset that his daughter hadn't called. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. It was somebody else from the church wanting him to do something else, and he agreed and then went back to read his paper. A third phone call came. It was his wife, who was at work, and she needed him to bring her a hamburger. So he ran to get her a hamburger, took it to work, and came back. And he asked the little boy, my friend's brother, if she had called. And he says, "No, Dad, she hasn't called yet." Now, my friend was the kind who always remembered everybody's birthday, and even if she had to call collect, she called you for the birthday. So her father was pretty upset. It was 8:30 in the evening, his birthday, and his baby hadn't bothered calling him. He was angry. The phone rang again, and he refused to pick up the phone because he was so angry. The little brother answered the phone, came to his father and said, "Daddy, I don't know what she's done, but she's done it again. You better get on the phone. It's a doctor." That was the moment that Mr. Moore learned about the train broadsiding the car his daughter was in. He was told that she would not live till morning, that he and his wife needed to come and make funeral arrangements. Mr. Moore was first upset because he didn't know the accident was with a train, and he thought his daughter had driven a car she wasn't allowed to have. But as he calmed down and learned what had happened, he realized she was going to die. She was critically ill, and the only way to protect her was through God's intervention. He dropped to his knees and started praying. As he finished his prayer, he grabbed the phone and called the preacher and said, "Help, we need the prayer chain started now. She's dying. Please pray for Becky." That's me. 40 years ago, I was supposed to be dead. I was hit by a freight train. Did God let that freight train hit me? Possibly. Did he cause it? No. He allowed situations to come together to call me back home. I forgot to put the seatbelt on that night. Had I had the seatbelt on, the cow catcher would have gone through my head, and there would have been no saving me. But as it was not on, I was thrown free. My best friend's roommate, her boyfriend was out cheating on her, getting an ice cream cone with another girl. Did God cause that? No, he allowed it to happen. Because Barry was there, he saw the accident. He was able to get somebody who was old enough to sign release sheets so emergency surgery could be done. Dr. Bob Bannister was the only doctor in town. And 40 years ago, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have pagers. And Dr. Bannister lived in Little Rock, 50 miles away. It would have been an hour before he could have gotten there to do any surgery. But as he was leaving for the day, someone else took a turn for the worse, and he stayed at the hospital. As he was walking out the door, they got the call of the accident, and he was at the hospital there to do the surgery. Did God cause the other person to get sick? No. He allowed the situation so that his child could be saved. I was thrown free from the car. I was laying in a ditch, bleeding and dying. A nurse had been trying to get off work early for 2 weeks, and they were understaffed. She could not. But that night she got off early and promised her kids that she'd go to Walmart and pick them up some soda. She drove by Front and Bruce Streets just as the accident happened. She ran to help the person in the car because that's all anybody saw. She jumped into the ditch to get around through the crowd so that she could get to the car, and she tripped over my body. Had she not tripped over my body, I would not have been found. I was laying in the ditch with the temporal artery severed on both sides of my head. I was bleeding to death. But because she stepped into that ditch and found me, I was saved. I wasn't supposed to live through the night. I severed both arteries, both temporal arteries. My eyes hemorrhaged for 2 weeks. I fractured all 4 jaws. I had 2 skull fractures. I separated both shoulders. Damaged my hearing. Multiple lacerations of my face, my arms, my legs, my scalps. But God saved my life. because there was something I need to do. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, I was back in class in 20 days. 20 days is all it took for me to go back to school. What did I learn from that? I learned that God can do miracles. I learned the power of prayer. And I learned that He's a God that walks beside me day by day, ever watching over me lest I stray. He's not a God that lives away up there. He's right here, right now, with anyone who wants Him. He'll find you if you'll just let Him. He'll find you if you'll just ask Him. Yes, I had been raised in a Christian church. Yes, I had been a Sunday school teacher. Yes, I had known the legalisms of being a Christian. But it wasn't till I needed Him and allowed Him to be my personal friend that I knew what it was like to hold His hand and walk through life.